You are listening to the Next Play podcast, the playbook for high-performing leaders who want to exceed their full potential. From walking on the Ole Miss football team at 5'7", 150 pounds and earning a full D1 scholarship, to coaching thousands around the world and working with massive organizations like IBM. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me as I interview some of the most successful people so you too can learn how to focus on always moving forward by deciding, planning, and executing on the next play relentlessly. What's going on? This is Richie Contratesi with the Next Play podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Sarah Duran, who has really kind of carved out this niche in university research and has become a successful freelancer doing projects for universities. But what makes her, unique is that not only is she a freelancer herself, but she also helps other people become freelancers. And instead of just focusing on how much they're making, which is what most coaches out there focus on, she focuses on designing a business around the lifestyle that you want to live. And she also aligns a lot with our thinking and Next Play and focusing on the short term and testing and measuring to constantly move forward. And I think that's really powerful. And so, Sarah, I'm excited to go talk through your journey, how you built this business, how you help other people. So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's talk about your business today. What does it look like as a freelancer? And then how do you help others become freelancers?
Sure. So I spend about, I would say 75 to 80% of my time and make, I would say like 99% of my money working with university research clients. So the way I get into that is I did that before I went out on my own and then ended up starting to do that as a contractor after I decided to go out on my own and start my own business. And so on the client facing side of my business, I manage large scale, like long-term research projects. So my contracts with folks usually range from like 2 to 6 years. Wow. They get a big grant from a foundation. They promise the foundation that they're going to do a bunch of things. And then they hire me to help them really like pull that off. So to make sure that what they said was going to happen happens. And then in the other like 25% of my time over the last few years, I've built up a business around helping other people leverage solopreneurship to live the life that they wanted to live. So what I realized is that working for myself was sort of like destiny for me, even though I never would have said that this is where I would end up. And it's really helped me like build this life and this lifestyle that I don't think is very easy to build when you work for other people. And so I, through courses and I write blogs and I do one-on-one coaching with people and also group coaching. So this year this year into next year, I just launched my first mastermind group. Nice. We're really focused on just helping people create a solopreneur business that serves the life that they want to live.
I love that. I really do. Because it's such a different kind of look at this business, this world that we live in today of entrepreneurship and solopreneurs and 1099 consultants and salespeople who are now really just solopreneurs. So it's such an interesting world, and I love your spin on helping people that it's not just about, it's about designing the life that you want. And I think that's really powerful. So I want to start by talking about how do you help, because people always go back to, especially in the solopreneur space and the freelancer space, which is how do I get clients, right? And so what's your kind of philosophy and how did you build your freelancer business where you pick this niche and now you have long contracts, usually not that long, but how do you consistently get clients and how do you help your clients do that as well?
Yeah, so my my business, and I'll talk a little bit about how I do it, and then that's like the main way that I coach other people to do it, but there's also a lot of other avenues to this. So my business is built 100% on referrals and networking. So I do for the client facing side, like the project management side of my business, I do zero marketing. If you go to my website, you will see that is all focused completely on my like coaching side of my business. I
Right.
have like one page that talks about project management just in case anyone ends up going there. But all of that is built through referrals and relationships. So
Wow.
I always coach people on making sure that they are tapping into their existing network and keeping that network, keeping in touch with that network as much as possible. It doesn't have to be terrible. I definitely was one of those people that was like, I hate networking. I hate going to like, cold events where you just have to like talk to a bunch of
Like
strangers and
forced
like
networking
yeah, exactly.
things.
You have to
Those are the
pretend
worst.
that you like them, but really
Or-
you're just like looking at them as if they're dollar signs walking around. Uh,
Right.
so really like what the way I built my business is like when I started out on my own, I started out doing work for people that I'd already worked for. So people that already knew me, that already trusted me, they were just hiring me as a contractor instead of an employee. And then after that, it was all through referrals. And every time I got a referral, I would be like asking people like, who else should I be talking to? Also build up like super long-term, very I don't intense isn't the right word, but very close relationships with my clients because I work with them for such a long period of time. And so when there's periods of time, which I think there is for all solopreneurs, where you're like, oh, maybe I need to pick up some more work going into the next quarter or the next year, I'll literally reach out to folks and just be like, hey, like, I'm looking to pick up a couple new contracts in the next like 6 months to a year. Like, do you know anyone else I should be talking to? And I have a relationship with my clients where like, that's not weird at all. Like they're 100% on like encouraging me to be in charge of my business because it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Right.
I would say too that like that's not the only direction. So the one of my business partners who we have a podcast called the Freelance Revolution, and she gets all of her, she's also a freelancer, she gets all of her clients off of the Upwork platform. And so networking is still super important for her and she still does it all the time, but she also built a 6-figure freelance business in, I would say less than a year just by really mastering one platform. And so I think that like there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I always am like, just, focus on networks and relationships. Platforms are also awesome. I think the thing that I tell freelancers not to do is to focus on things like funnels and freebies and Facebook ads and stuff like that, because
Really?
those are not, you're not building long-term relationships with people when you do stuff like that. I think that stuff is valuable and I use all those kind of strategies for the content and the product side of my business. But for long-term, high ticket contracts, and tight relationships with clients that I really love working for, you're not going to get those people off of an Instagram ad.
I could definitely see that. Okay. So, but you're saying you get them through referrals. Like that's your,
Referrals, yep, and ongoing
yeah.
work. So basically, like the people I work for, most of them just continue, like every grant they write me into it. And
Yeah.
so I'm getting continuing, ongoing contracts with the same people over and over again.
Now, do you think like in every industry for freelancers, things like Facebook ads won't work, or just specifically for like high ticket niche kind of freelance contracts like you have?
I mean, I still think that Facebook ads and like I think ads in general, you're just building shallow relationships and you end up like it's all a funnel strategy, right? So you have to hit like thousands of people at the top of your funnel to get one good client at the bottom.
Right.
And you end up just spending a lot of your time like and your money, quite frankly, focusing on all those people who just want to consume your free content and never pay you for anything. Which on the content side of my business is fine
Yeah.
because I want people to, like I want to have valuable content that I'm giving away for free that people like to engage in. And if that translates into a coaching engagement down the road, that's totally fine. But for the freelance side of my business, I want to cultivate like long-term
Right.
relationships with really awesome clients who I like working for, not having to like spread myself so thin trying to like bang down the door of like literally anyone that could hire me.
Right. So talk to me about your content side of it. What is that? Do you write about your project management work with universities, or are you writing about coaching and your freelancing work and like how you've built it, and like what does your content side look like?
So I have a blog where I focus
Okay.
specifically on writing content for freelancers. So I talk about like client acquisition. I talk about like I have a whole article on networking. I just published a new blog about why freelancers are better off during a recession. So all like content that is specifically focused on freelancers. And then I have a Substack where I do a little bit different content. It's a little bit more general about being a hustler. So it's called the Hustler's Manifesto. And it's like basically about like I definitely am incorporating its content for freelancers and solopreneurs because that's my primary audience, but it's more it veers off into other different directions, like thinking about just like managing your life in uncertain times, and that kind of stuff. And so I have two different like wings of my content business, and then the other part of my content is I have a series of courses for freelancers, so like everything from like how to get started freelancing to how to project manage your freelance clients, how to get more clients, how to close more deals like that. I have a course around that. So it is all like primarily focused on freelancers and how to help them build a better business, basically.
And do you feel like that is that the road that you think you'll end up going down? Like I know you said majority of what you have is still freelancing. Do you feel like you're moving more and more towards more of just having a coaching business?
It's such a good question. Excuse me. So I would have thought in like January of 2020, I was just like, maybe I should like branch out and start doing some coaching and some other stuff. And I started it because I wanted a passive income stream. I was like, I need to have something where it's not just like a one-to-one of my time to dollar amounts. And I think when you're a solopreneur, that is something that like all of us get stuck in because there's literally only one of you. Like, you know, I have a virtual assistant, I have like other people that support me in different ways, but like primarily like I am a business of one. And so really it started off as a way to just like build some passive income streams. I started with the courses. And what I realized along the way is that I was like actually so passionate about helping other people successfully work for themselves that it's become so much more than about making money, which is why again, like when I think about like building my audience for my content work, it's much less about for me than about making money than it is about just like getting the message out there. Um, and I also think that if you had asked me that a few years ago, I would have said that I would have loved to have more of my income coming from coaching. Um, but I think that fundamentally I can't coach people on how to be freelancers unless I do it. So I think it's really important when
That's
you're
that's a tough one. That's true. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. But I think a lot of and like coaches, you know, kind of run the gamut. It's not like all coaches are as content specific as I am, but I really believe that you have to be able to like walk the talk, or you're just teaching people to do things that like may have worked for you 5 years ago, but like
Right.
how do you know
Right.
that they still work?
Right.
So I'm constantly like getting better at being a business owner and a freelancer and then translating those directly into the content I produce, and the people that I coach. And I think I've realized that like I really love um I really love my client work. So I also think even besides that, like I'd never want to like give it up completely. Would I love for it to take up a little bit less of my time?
Right.
Probably. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's important to have that kind of like diversity.
Yeah. No, I like that. So for you, where do you see this going for you? Like, and actually, let me ask you this, because I think this is an important question that people may be thinking. When you say help them build a business around the life they want to live, like what's your process for that? How do you go about doing that?
So, the process starts where I think a lot of goal setting processes fall off is that you don't start with two super important things. The first one is really fundamentally understanding who you are. So I think a lot
Okay.
of people don't actually know very much about like who they are, their inner strengths, their challenges, like things like that. And then the second piece that I think people don't do as much deep work on is what they want. And so we start off by doing like a lot of work around like who they are. Then we do some really deep work around what they want. So there's a lot of different ways that I go about that. But it's about like really zeroing in on what you want holistically from your whole life, because when you work for yourself, you can design your business however you want to serve the life you want to live. You don't always get to do that when you work for other people. Um, and I think there's a lot of reasons why people think they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they want. And so they
Right.
like build these goals around what they think they want. And in a year, they're like, oh, I did not want that. Like maybe that's what my mom wanted me to want, or maybe that's what society wanted me to want. So I think doing those two things in the beginning are really important. Um, and and once you like get done with that part, then you're able to design goals around your business, because if you want a six-figure income and you want to work a 10-hour work week, your goals are going to look very different from someone who's like, I'm gonna be fine on 30K and I just want to work like 5 hours a week because I got kids or whatever it is. So
Right.
I think like knowing that you're knowing what you're going to prioritize in your work is going to drive the types of projects you take on, the types of clients you want to work for, the
What do you
resources.
see? What do you see most common, like that people want today?
It's almost never money. So when I do this work, do this goal setting work sometimes as a series of workshops. And when I do that, I ask people, we go through the process of like brainstorming what you want. And or like why, like your top 5 reasons why you work for yourself. The number one that I always see is flexibility. So whether it's like where you work, how you work, or like what you do. And the other one is time. So they want to have more time for themselves and less time working. Money usually comes in like number 4 or 5 on the list. But I almost never hear people say that money is their primary motivation. But I think that if you just ask someone that without having them like really think through it, that's like one of the first things that people will say. But after they're doing the work of like really thinking about what they want, it usually comes down to like flexibility, freedom, and time.
Got it. Okay. And so how do you build a business around that? If someone's like, I want, flexibility and time, like how do you go about doing that?
So like an example might be, say someone wants to be like a digital nomad. So they want to like travel the world while they're
Right.
working, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that like you probably don't want to be a virtual assistant that has to be on call all the time
Right.
for your clients. So that's like one example of like maybe pick projects where you're doing it in like shorter spurts. So like maybe if you wanted to focus more on like graphic design, for instance, so you're taking on like short-term projects. You get the project, you finish it, you go to your next place. You don't have to be on call like responsive to someone all the time. That's just like one example of how you would like design your
Right.
business to focus on that. For me, and I'll use my podcast partner as a counter example on this one too. My daughter is 4.5. And so I design my
Nice.
business so that I have a lot of time to spend with her. And that means that like I say no to contracts that I maybe otherwise would have said yes to before I had her. My business partner that I do my podcast with, her kiddos are older. She's about to be an empty nester in a few years. And so she's in this opposite area where she's like, my kids don't rely on me as much as they used to. And she's working her ass off so that she can retire early. And when they're in college, she can travel around and be wherever they're at and do what she
Right.
wants. And so I think that's just like an example of like prioritizing. Like I have no problem prioritizing money. But I think that's not always like gonna be the number one thing on your list.
Right, right. No, I like that. So tell me a little bit about kind of the type of freelancers. Do you work with salespeople at all, or is it mainly like designers and writers, and like what type of freelancers do you typically work with?
So it's really all over the place. I work with people who are like freelance, like evaluation people. So they have like PhDs and they do like evaluation work for folks. I've worked with like brick and mortar solopreneurs. So people that own like a salon or own like a um one of my clients was like an esthetician and massage therapist. So they have like an actual like brick and mortar business.
Right, right. It's like
I
one
work
room or something like that. It's
yeah.
just them. Yeah. Okay.
I've worked with virtual assistants. I've worked with other like creatives. So like people that like have podcasts and like write books and like blogs and stuff like that. Um, I've worked with I have a couple of clients who are like HR consultants. So it's really like all over the place in terms of what people
Wow.
do.
Yeah.
I have one person that I talked to that like taught voice lessons. So it's really like basically my criteria is like you work for yourself and you work like primarily by yourself. So like I have worked with people that have like a business partner or something like that. Um, but in terms of like the one-on-one coaching, I'm usually working with people that are like legit solopreneurs.
Right, right. Okay, cool. And so when you work with them, the first thing you do is you break down kind of what exactly they want, and then from there you could figure out what their options are and help them kind of design uh whatever that whatever that roadmap looks like. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you keep it more short term versus long term, and how you found that to be to, allow you to be more successful.
Sure. So yeah, after you figure out what you want, then I use basically a project management strategies to help people design short cycle goals. Um, I employ a lot of tactics from a project management style called Agile, where you're doing these
Yeah.
like short sprints. And so we usually break down like quarters and we break most the closest quarter down into months. So like over the next 3 months, what do you want to accomplish?
Right.
And then monthly, we're checking in to make sure that we're adjusting as things change, we're taking things off, we're putting new things on. And every time we're doing that, we're also going back to check back against who they are and what they want. So it's always helpful to like gut check yourself about like when you're setting goals, like you told me that money wasn't your number one motivation, and yet you're about to take on this like huge contract that you may not have time for. Like, does that really like go back and like check yourself? And maybe what they wanted has changed, and that's fine. But I think we like
Right.
sometimes get distracted by shiny objects. And so
Yes.
yeah, and so being able to like having that like baseline to gut check yourself against is really important.
I would say that's like one of the biggest for business owners, solopreneurs, because today we live in a world where there's so much you can do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to stay focused. Like that's why we do what we do. I mean, so it's like, so that's obviously one of your core things is keeping them focused.
Yeah.
And so you do that on a monthly basis. Is that kind of your
Yeah, with
process?
most of my clients, we'll meet monthly. Some of my clients I meet with weekly for like a shorter period of time. But mostly we meet, excuse me, monthly. And then we like every quarter we'll have like a kind of a longer check-in to be like, okay, let's plan out the next quarter. Let's look back on the last quarter and like see what worked, what didn't work. And then annually we'll usually revisit that whole process about who you are and what you want, because like that
Nice.
stuff changes. Like I think that's the
Right.
other thing is like, especially like I remember setting goals when I worked for other people and you'd have your like annual review or whatever, and you like come back to those goals a year later and you're like, this is completely irrelevant. Like, I don't even know.
Right.
So yeah, we have like some key touch points to just go a little bit deeper and make sure that we're circling back on kind of those foundational pieces.
I love that. Okay, cool. So what's your next play? What are you kind of focusing on right now moving forward?
That's such a good question. So in general, I mean, and like, kind of based on my philosophy, it's weird because so I'm a project manager, so I think very far in advance. Like I already like plan out my next few months in advance.
Right.
But like when someone's like, where are you going to be in 5 years? Like, I have no idea. Like,
Right.
I think I will be, with my husband and my daughter. Those are the two things that I know will still be true. But
Right.
other than that, like my business, I'm sort of just like riding the waves of where my business goes. Like I'd like to have, I'm continuing to gain traction with the content stuff. And so continuing to build my audience, continuing to get subscribers to my blog and my Substack. I'm continuing to form partnerships with people that serve similar audiences, which is another great networking strategy too that I didn't mention is building relationships with people that are adjacent to what you do but serve the
Right.
same audience.
Mm.
So I do
Yes.
that. I'm continuing to build those kinds of relationships, trying to get on a bunch of podcasts, which is another way of doing that. So my client side of my business, it's not that it's on autopilot, but I feel like business development wise, I have that down. And so I'm really focusing on like building up the content side of my business and hopefully building it into like more of a legit like passive income stream.
I love that. Okay. Well, we're gonna promote the heck out of it. I've looked at your stuff. I think it's really good, and I think it can help a lot of people out there that whether it's brick and mortar, solopreneur, you're a freelancer, and you're not focused, and you're not, you're just kind of in on the treadmill, so to say,
Mhm.
right? And so if you want to actually lay out and design a life for yourself, then you've got to connect here with my friend Sarah. So, how can we find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
So if you go to my website, it's www.fruitioninitiatives.com.
Yep.
And the homepage of my website will have basically every like links to everything that I do. So my coaching, my blog, my Substack, my podcast, like all that kind of stuff. Um,
And the
and
book. Get the
and the
book.
book, yes, I
Instant
published my
Freelancer.
first book this year. Yeah. So that's like my book is basically like just soup to nuts. Like, want to be a freelancer? Here's how you do it.
And
Um,
it's like so well laid out too. Like
Thank you.
your website is really. Did you do this, or do you
I
have
did it.
somebody?
Nope, I
It's
DIY'd
really
that whole
good.
thing. Thank you.
It's really well done. Like it explains it really well. But go ahead. Sorry, I mean
No,
to
no
get the
worries.
book.
Yes, the book I think is like the biggest bang for your buck. You're gonna get like the whole
Right.
soup to nuts experience. And then if you like courses, and I have my courses all come with templates that people can use for proposals, for project plans, for budgets, all that kind of stuff.
And that's Fruition Academy.
Yep. Yep. And
Love
so
it.
all my courses are in there. And then, like I said, I do one-on-one coaching. But like if you're listening and you're interested in learning more, I would say the best way to connect with me is just like sign up for my blog, subscribe to my Substack, and then you'll sort of like get a better feel for what I'm about.
Yeah, no, I love this. I love your mentality and like your approach to this. It's so different than 90% of the coaches and people that I know. So I love that it's about designing the life. And I think a lot of people need to step back on a
Mhm.
quarterly basis and a yearly basis and say, what really am I building here? Um, and that's something that, I do with my coach. We do it once a quarter, and it's so powerful because and it's usually right about that time where I'm like losing control of
Uh-huh.
of like where I'm going, and I'm like, it's like you need to redirect. So, I love it. I think it's awesome, Sarah. I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing this. And for everyone listening, definitely go to Fruition Initiative. It's fruitioninitiatives.com. There's a ton of really valuable content here, and you're gonna get a lot of really good nuggets. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Play podcast. If you liked the show, make sure to leave us a review. For more resources, visit relentlessuniversity.com or download the free Relentless University app. And if you're interested in having me speak at your next event, visit relentlessrichie.com. Until next time.